Welcome, fellow freaks, geeks, and nostalgic 90s nerds to my channel, Slime and Slashers, where, yeah, we talk about everything from Nickelodeon slime to horror movie slashers, but plenty of stuff in between, too. But today's video, I'm very excited. It's my 2021 Book Award ceremony. I'm going to be handing out different awards to different books that I either enjoyed or in a few cases I didn't enjoy, and I'm gonna have a lot of different categories. I'm very excited for you guys to see what books I like the most and what books got which awards. So, without further ado, we're gonna go to the short intro, and when we come back, we will get into the ceremony. Welcome back, guys. As I said, it's my 2021 Book Award ceremony. I'm going to be talking about all the books I read last year, giving different awards to different books and things like that. I almost wish I would have thought of the name Kelsi's Choice Awards, because I think that's a lot more appropriate, and it's very similar to Nickelodeon's Kids' Choice Awards, but no one's going to get slimed here today, and that's not even the official title of the flippin' video, because I already made the graphics like a week or two ago, and it all said 2021 Book Awards. So it is what it is. But next year, I think I'm going to rebrand this end of the year recap as more of a Kelsi's Choice Awards type of thing. Again, probably not going to have slime next year either, because guess what? I already did that back in 2021. I made slime. I slimed myself. If you want to see footage, I guess, okay, roll the footage! Okay, hope you guys enjoyed that ridiculous sliming. I did that, I think, when I reached 1,200 subscribers on my YouTube channel, just for fun. And yes, it was not as easy to make slime as I thought it would be, so it is what it is, but it was a wacky time, that's for sure. Alright, so before we get into the actual awards, I do want to go over some of my reading stats for the year of 2021. Before I even do that, let me say that we are talking about different categories today. This is not a top 10 list. I will have a separate video that will be an official top 10 list, and it will be ranked in a certain order. So that is to come still in a couple of videos from now. Not the next video, but it is coming soon, so stay tuned. Alright, and besides that, I'm also going to have, I think in the same video, I think I'm going to combine it, I'm going to kind of shout out some of my favorite booktube channels of 2021. So, you know, booktubers that I discovered last year, I'm going to just shout some people out. So that is to come, and I think it's something to look forward to, and I can't wait to get to it. But today, it's going to be a lot more than a top 10. We're going to be talking about a ton of books, so without further ado, let's get into it, because this is going to take forever, in a fun way, I guess. Alright, so for the stats, in 2021, I flippin' read 81 books. In a previous video I released just recently, I actually said I read 80 books. However, that is not correct, because I actually forgot one of my books was not on Goodreads. So, that is why I thought it was just 80, but it's 81. So, I think that's not too shabby. It's really a high number for me, especially. I just started reading this intense amount of volume of books in late 2019, so I'm not really far into my reading journey, so it really makes me proud that I'm making some good progress and getting through a lot of books in a year, because that's what I have to do to catch up, because so many people have read so many books, and I feel like I still have to read a lot of essentials that other people have already read. So I think 81 is good progress here. And let's talk about the number of pages I read. I read 19,010 pages. I am pretty damn proud of that. And I think the reason it's so high is because I know I had at one point a 500 and something page book. I definitely had over 1,000-page book, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, during the awards ceremony. So yeah, I had a couple of long books, but I did have quite a few middle grade reads and some YA reads. Those aren't that long, so I think 19,000 was higher than I expected because of all the middle grade and kids books I read. I just didn't think it was going to be that high, so when I saw that number, I was like, hell yeah! And I was very, very pumped about it. Alright, so I read, out of those 81 books, 79 of them were horror. And yes, it could be either adult horror or middle grade horror or YA horror, but 79 horror titles, and that's pretty crazy. That means that basically all I read was horror, which I'm very happy about. And so 2 were not horror. 1 was actually a podcast book, which my boss, Glenn Rubenstein, wrote. So that one was for work that I read, and it was very short, and actually was really well written, so he did a great job with his book. And then I read a Star Trek The Next Generation book. It was a tie-in book, and it takes place in the TNG universe. It's called Umzadi, and that one was fun. Not my favorite read of the year, that's for sure. It was kind of like a middle-of-the-road type of read, but still fun and entertaining, and my first Star Trek novel read. And that, I think, was a huge accomplishment because it told me, hey, you can get into reading books that are set in some of your favorite, like, TV universes. So I just thought there might be a problem with me trying to, you know, imagine the universe that I've known so well visually while I was reading, but during Imzadi, it really worked out. I, like, pictured the characters in my head. I could see what they were saying. So yeah, that wasn't a problem. Let's talk about shortest and longest book read. So the shortest book I read was The Possession of Natalie Glasgow by Haley Piper. That is only 66 pages, so that was my shortest book. So the longest book, here's the book I was telling you about, the book that was over 1,000 pages, and it is The Stand by Stephen King. And boy, is it a chunker, man. It was freaking long, and to be precise, it was 1,152 pages long. Hell yeah. I can't even believe I did it, and it gives me hope because I have plans to read his book, It, later in 2022 at the end of the year, or closer to the end of the year. Probably closer to the end of the summer, to be specific. So I think I could do it now. I feel kind of, you know, encouraged and rejuvenated, like, oh my god, I can read long books. So that made me feel accomplished, to be honest. Alright, so the author or authors that I read the most books by, and that actually goes to 2 people. I read 3 books by Grady Hendrix, and I also read 3 books by Mr. Stephen King, including, yes, my longest book read this year, which was The Stand. And yeah, look at this wonderful, beautiful Barnes & Noble hardcover edition of The Stand. Just lovely. God, such a nice edition. And it was really easy to read from this edition because, I don't know, it was just really super simple for the book to stay open to where I was, which was very convenient and helpful. Because sometimes a big, long paperback does not stay open, and that is annoying and difficult to read. So that didn't happen, so thank goodness for that. Now let's talk about paperbacks from hell. And I actually really got into collecting vintage horror paperbacks this last year in 2021. And that's largely due to the fact that I read Paperbacks from Hell by Grady Hendrix and Will Erickson, and it really influenced me to start to want to collect books. And if you guys know me, I am a collector at heart, especially if you're a longtime viewer of mine. You might know about my 90s Nickelodeon collection. I collect posters that, like, you see behind me. But yeah, I'm really pumped about my collecting journey because, yes, just like I collected posters and 90s Nickelodeon stuff, now I've really gotten into the books and collecting those. And it's been so much fun going to different used bookstores. In fact, one of the videos I have planned for either this month or the very beginning of next month, I'm going to do a top 25 list of my favorite vintage horror paperbacks that I've hauled from 2021. Now, that means any books that I shown on camera that I purchased at a bookstore. It will not include any covers or books that I bought from an Etsy shop or from eBay or any person I know like David Dodd or Cameron Chaney. So I won't include any of the books that I bought from any of them. It'll be just books that I found out in the wild, and it's going to be exclusively Paperbacks from Hell type of books that I found. But how many did I read in total in 2021? How many of these old school vintage horror paperbacks did I read? 18, which I'm so proud of. I think that's a really good number, considering I was also trying to read newer stuff. I was trying to read middle grade. And I will say the number 18 does not include some of the bigger horror authors, because I thought that Paperbacks from Hell, to me, I know it includes big name authors like Anne Rice and Dean Koontz and Stephen King, but to me, like, the real meaning of Paperbacks from Hell are like the kind of unknown gems of horror, the lesser known authors who aren't known by just regular people, everyday people. These Paperbacks from Hell are like only known by people who really want to go and look for old school hidden paperbacks that are really cool looking. And so the number does not include any King, it doesn't include any Barker or Kuntz or Shirley Jackson or R.L. Stine, even though those are mentioned in Paperbacks from Hell by Hendricks and Erickson. I just was like, no, I'm just going to count the smaller books read. So we're talking about books like Halo, The Troop. These are old school books. Books like Toy Cemetery by William W. Johnstone. So those are the books I'm counting in the 18, but I'm not including all those really famous, really prominent people, even though I did read those authors this last year. So they're not included. If you added those, it would be over 20 Paperbacks from Hell that I read, but I'm just saying it's 18. All right, I read 16 middle grade or kids books in 2021, and that includes 6 Goosebumps reads. And I'm very excited about that because I've had this project I've been working on for the last year and a half. I'm trying to go through my entire collection of the original Goosebumps series. And so 6 books down. And I was trying to go in order, but I picked random books this past year to read for different thematic reading months. So that's why it wasn't really in order, and it was just here and there. And we'll talk about some of the Goosebumps as we go on into the actual awards ceremony. All right, so I also read 9 young adult books, and they were all vintage YA. None of them were current YA, like not even the 2000s. It was all from either late 80s or through the 90s. So the 9 YA books I read included 4 point horror books, 3 Fear Street books, and 2 other random books that weren't really part of Fear Street or Point. So that, I think, is a pretty good number. I also read 7 anthologies or story collections during 2021. I feel like that's a really good number. I definitely had a favorite, and we'll talk about that. So we talked about books and like the numbers, but let's talk about some of my YouTube video numbers because I think that's kind of interesting. I filmed and edited, and this is insane to me because this is the most consistent I've ever been with video making on my own channel. I've done it for like other channels when I've made YouTube content for other websites I worked for who had a YouTube channel. But yeah, for me, this is like the best ever. So I made and edited 48 bookish themed videos, and that's not including any of my horror movie chats with Kat. That's not including like anything where I talk about horror movies or movies in general or anything miscellaneous like my Nickelodeon slime video that I showed you guys a clip from. That video is not included in the 48. So I had 48 plus a lot of other videos that were not related to books, but yes, 48 specifically book-related videos. And yeah, I'm so proud. I know that sounds ridiculous. I keep saying I'm proud of things, but I don't know. It was a good year in terms of books and reading, so please let me have this. I guess. I don't know. I'm sorry. All right, so some of the videos included bookish vlogs, tons of book hauls, like a ton of them. Also, I had TBR announcements and monthly wrap-ups, of course, and I even did one top 10 list about like my top 10 vintage horror dream finds that I wanted to find out in the wild. And so I really liked that video. That was one of my favorite videos that I did last year. So yeah, good stuff there. Oh, I did it. I was consistent. I'm sorry. Like I said, let me have this. Let me have this dance and whatever, this stupid jolliness. All right, so let's talk about some of the other things I did that were bookish related. I participated and created actually 2 readathons during 2021. One I created with my friend Kat for Halloween, and it was all about horror movies. So each prompt that we created for this readathon, it was all based on horror movies. But again, like it was a book that had to match the prompt. So it was a readathon. That's why it wasn't like a movie watching thing. It was like a horror reading thing, but just based on movies. And the other readathon I did, oh my god, I loved it. It was for November, and it was called my Nostalgic 90s November Readathon, and all the prompts were based on things from the 90s. So I had to base my reading off of all of these prompts, but all the prompts had in common that like they were from the 90s. So movies from the 90s, TV from the 90s, or in one case, a book series from the 90s. And so I was really proud of those prompts. There goes that word again. I'm sorry. I'm going to try not to use the word anymore during this video because already it's out of control and absurd and I'm saying it way too much. So I also did 3 thematic reading months during mostly July, but it kind of bled into other months too, I did like a slasher type of readathon where I was reading all kinds of slashers and summer camp horror as well. It was mostly summer camp themed horror, but there was a lot of slashers in there too. So summer camp and slashers essentially. And then also I did a thematic month of reading for Halloween in October, and I did a thematic month of reading for December with like Christmassy reads and stuff like that. All horror though, so that's what everything had in common. Next up, I do want to quickly talk about my favorite months of reading throughout all of 2021. So July, like I just mentioned, I did a whole bunch of reading that had to do with slashers and summer camp horror stories, and those were incredible. And I would say that's probably like my very favorite month, but I don't know, it's kind of tied with November because my 90s nostalgic readathon was really fun. I actually had a whole bunch of wonderful reads that were some of my favorite reads of the entire year in November. So November is right tied with July, and actually December, which we just, finished up with. December 2021 was a great reading month as well, so that was one of my favorite reading months of the entire year too. So a three-way tie essentially. Those were some great months for me in terms of finding favorites and having a lot of enjoyment with the books I was picking out, and and the themes I was trying to adhere to and things of that nature. So yes, it was a success. Woo! Why am I so excited? Well, it is an award ceremony. I did think about kind of dressing up. I'm semi-dressed up, but I was like, I'm gonna make it like it's like, the Kelsi's Choice Awards, like the Kids' Choice Awards, where you're kind of more yourself than like dressed up and fancy, like let's say for the Oscars, for example. So I'm doing it more in the Kids' Choice Awards vein versus the Oscars vein. So this is like casual awards, okay guys? Like, we're casual here today, not fancy. I don't do fancy very well. I did think about wearing a dress, and I was like, no, that ain't me. I mean, I do wear them, but I don't really enjoy it necessarily, like 100%, just because like it's hell to pick out stuff and etc., etc. I never find anything I like to wear that I really love. All right, so yes, we're kind of being casual here, so that is why we're talking about favorites, and that is why I'm dressed this way, and that is why I'm so excited. But I'm standing up because to me, whether it's the Kid Choice Awards or the flippin' Oscars, they're all standing up, the presenters. So I am your host and presenter for the night, and yes, I am standing. Versus I usually sit in my little rocking chair, but it's awards. We're giving away freaking awards here, and so that, like, constitutes needing to like walk around and being like, yeah, cheer. I don't know. Anyway, I'm being really silly and over the top. I don't even know. Just because I'm so excited about this video. I've been planning it for like a month and a half, and so to finally be filming it, it's super fun, and I don't know, it's making me pumped up. So thanks guys for watching and for dealing with my bullshit. I really appreciate it. Alright, so back to the favorites. So let's talk quickly about my favorite bookish videos I filmed, and then one favorite video I filmed that wasn't bookish related, and then we'll get into the actual awards after that. We're almost done with the favorites. Alright, so in terms of my favorite non-bookish video that I made, it would have to be my Hurricane Ida vlog. I literally vlogged when I knew that the hurricane was coming here. I thought to myself, and I talked about this with my boyfriend, like, should I film this? At first we thought the hurricane would be no big deal. Oh, it's just gonna be not too big of a deal. Like usual, we've been dealing with hurricanes for a while. We haven't had a really big one at that point, since Katrina. And so we weren't thinking too much of it. The news and the weather guys were kind of saying, it's okay for now at first. So when I decided to vlog, it wasn't that big of a deal. I thought, okay, we'll show ourselves like putting things away that are on the patio so they won't blow around. We'll show us cleaning up the house. We'll show, myself reading in case the lights go out. But then as time went on in the vlog, we started to learn that Hurricane Ida was going to be serious, and we hadn't evacuated. And so it was like the night before the storm. I'm literally vlogging. We're here. We're trying to figure out what to do. There's a tree that we were worried about falling on the house if the wind got as bad as they thought it was going to get. Like, they were projecting really bad wind, and they weren't at first, but all of a sudden they were. It was too late to go anywhere. So we decided to pack up at like 2 in the morning one of the nights. And we woke up at 6 a.m. and drove to my parents like the day of the storm. So we rode it out at my parents' house, who only live like 5 or 6 minutes away by car. So not very far, but they don't have big trees around their house. So that's why we decided to go there. We thought we would be safer. And I took as much as I could. But you see me like literally like, well, you don't see me, but you hear me crying in the video essentially, because I really thought that this could be the last time I saw my room like intact. And I had to leave a lot of like my Nickelodeon stuff. I had to leave a lot of stuff here. I took my books eventually. We actually came back to make one more trip to get more stuff right before the storm got bad. But at first I didn't bring the books, but then I was like kind of tortured by like, we have to go get more stuff, we have to go get more books, and we came back real quick because it's so close. But yeah, I just didn't know how bad it would be, and I documented everything, including during the storm at my parents' house, stuff leaking into their windows, stuff flooding into their house. They needed a new roof. So yeah, it was way worse than we thought, and we also were out of power for like 7 days. So I also vlogged us being out of power, what we did. I vlogged us cleaning up because our lawn, we had no major damage here at our rental house, but the lawn, both front and back, were insane. We had to pick up, there were so many fallen branches that were huge, and I did a whole bunch of time lapses of that. That video I could look back in like 50 years if I'm around and be like, wow, I can't believe I lived through that. That's crazy. I think it shows people who don't know what it's like to live through a hurricane what it's like. And, you know, we love our home, that's why we don't leave. So it's hard to just say, just leave and just move. It's really hard to just do that. So that's why we kind of stick it out, but it does get tiresome, like, dealing with these natural disasters. But yeah, so if you guys haven't seen it, please check it out or think about checking it out. It's long. It's really long, but I put a lot of heart into it and really bared my soul in that video, and that's why it's my favorite non-bookish video of 2021. I'll link it down below. Now for quickly, my favorite bookish videos of 2021, and some of these are ridiculous. Alright, so my summer camp horror video, where I literally talk about all the horror books I read for the summer, and most of it, like 13 books, they were all about summer camp. Some were slashers, some weren't. As long as it had to do with summer camp, I put it in the Readathon, and it was so much fun, and I did a spoof of The Parent Trap in the beginning of the video. It took me forever to edit it. Literally, like a 1-minute segment of the video took me like 3 hours, I think, because I had to match. I'd filmed it in a row where I was one person and then my twin, and it was hard to match the lighting. It was like excruciatingly hard, but I made it look like it was one scene. I think I did an okay job, but yeah, oh my god, it took me forever, but I'm so proud of how it turned out. So that had to be one of my favorite videos of the year, and I also did awards like I'm doing today for that video, so I just loved how that one came out. Also, another favorite I would say is my book review of The Nest by Gregory A. Douglas, because I had an inflatable roach, like it's a pool float that's in the shape of a roach for some reason. By the way, who would want that? Apparently my dad, because he bought it, and that's where I got it, because he had it in our attic, and I knew he had something roach related, so I went over there before I filmed the video, and I was like, do you have any fake roaches? And he's like, well, I have this pool float. He couldn't find his normal sized fake roaches, so anyway, I used this pool float like as a prop during parts of the video, but also like I read some quotes from the book, and I really loved that book. I had a good time reading it, and so I'm really proud of the review overall. There I go using that frickin' word again. I said I wasn't gonna do it, but it is what it is. Alright, so also I loved my top 10 horror dream finds, like books that I wish I could find out in the wild that I referenced a few minutes ago. That was one of my favorite videos of 2021 for sure. Then I did my first vlog, which was a Toy Cemetery reading vlog, and of course I've referenced this book already in this video, Toy Cemetery by William W. Johnstone. It was batshit crazy. It was as insane as people say it was. I wouldn't say it was insane in a completely good way. Some of it was so cringy and ridiculous, and you were just like, what? But at the same time, it really was a page turner and pretty easy to read, because you were just like, what's gonna happen next? Come on. And so because of that reason, I don't know, I had a great time filming myself reading it. And because it was my first vlog, I have kind of a soft spot for it, so that's why I'm including it in the list. And then finally, my last favorite of 2021 in terms of videos I made, my first day of fall vlog, which included me reading Autumncrow by Cameron Chaney. And that vlog I put so much heart into. I decorated for Halloween, I changed my desktop background to be Halloweeny, I organized my Halloween clothes into my closet, I did so much stuff that day. I baked brownies, and then I was swinging on a swing and reading Autumncrow. And so if you haven't seen that video, I really like it, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. And I also did a follow-up vlog where I finished reading Autumncrow, because in the fall one I just started reading it, and in the follow-up one I finished reading it and I went to Boston, so it was like a travel vlog and basically a reading vlog in addition. So it was like a dual vlog. So that one's up on the channel too. I'll link all these down below if you guys haven't seen them. Yes, I think these are some of my best videos of 2021, so I think you guys will enjoy it. Then honorable mentions quickly, I did a review of The Stand, and I didn't just talk about the book, I also compared the book to the CBS miniseries, the new miniseries, and then I also compared it to the 90s miniseries adaptation of The Stand. So I literally talked about 3 different versions of The Stand in this review, and it took forever to prep this video, so it was like, whoa, and that's why I'm including it as like an honorable mention. And then finally, probably my favorite book haul, because I took forever to do some of the things I had to do for it. I had like a lot of planning went into this video. It was my Nsync-themed book haul, where it was a vintage horror book haul, but in the beginning my intro was I spoofed, for some reason I came up with this idea like in my sleep. I spoofed NSYNC songs to be about book hauls. And I did it to like 6 songs or 7 songs. It was really ridiculous. Like I did Bye Bye Bye. I did Dirty Pop. I think Space Cowboy was one. It's Gonna Be Me was one as well. Oh my gosh. It was so absurd and ridiculous. But yes, I spoofed a ton of NSYNC songs, and I made it fit into a vintage horror book haul for some reason. And it, in my opinion, worked, I think. So definitely had to mention that one. And if you haven't seen it, please see it, because I spent hours and hours trying to film it because I did so many bad takes of the dance. I gotta release bloopers one of these days of that. If you guys want to see the bloopers, let me know. It's so over the top. But also, just writing the lyrics themselves, that took like days from when I thought about it to when I filmed the video, so definitely check it out if you're interested in hearing me sing badly and make a fool of myself, essentially. Alright, that's enough bonus stuff and favorites talk. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. The awards! Alright, without further ado, I'm gonna be a little more formal. But again, we're doing this in the vein of Kids' Choice Awards. So Kelsi's Choice Awards, we're free. We're excited. We're, you know, just flowing. So it's not too formal, more flowing and fun. Alright, so let's get into the awards. The first category, and not all of the categories have nominees, but my first few do. So I will read the nominees first, and then present the winner of the award. So here we go, without further ado. This first award is for the Best Young Adult Read of 2021. And the nominees are Monster by Christopher Pike, Silent Night by R.L. Stine, and Lights Out by R.L. Stine. So Silent Night and Lights Out are both Fear Street books. The winner is Silent Night by R.L. Stine. So I thought that this category was set in stone after November. I read Christopher Pike's Monster in November, and I was like, okay, that's definitely going to be my favorite YA read of the year, because it just blew me away. It really far surpassed any flippin' other YA vintage book that I read in all of 2021. So when I got there and I was like, yeah, Monster, it's gonna win. It's definitely going to be my choice for best YA read. But yeah, then all of a sudden in December, this little baby comes along and I was like, oh my god, Reva is such a bitch, but in a marvelous way. So honestly, I had a wonderful time with this. And I was just watching one of Marcy Reed's videos. I love her, by the way. Oh my gosh, I love her. Spoiler alert, she's gonna be one of my favorite booktube channels of 2021 when I do that as part of my top 10 video. But yes, she was just talking about how she read this for December and how she loved like the empty abandoned mall scene, because there is a scene like that in here. And I agree with her, that was fantastic. It hit all the right notes. That's literally how she described it. And 100% I have to go on the same wavelength as her and say that yes, it hit all the right notes for sure. And yeah, she was so just deliciously mean. I don't know. There's something about the main character, but she was layered as well. So it wasn't just like meanness with no reason or rhyme. The real saying is rhyme or reason, but you get what I'm saying. So yeah, she was a lot of fun in terms of like character wise. She was really just a ball to read. And I don't know, I really liked the mystery that developed. It actually kept me guessing. It was creative, and I don't know, it definitely had a holiday feel and vibe. I don't want to get too much into this because I will talk about this in my upcoming December wrap-up with my friend Kat, so stay tuned for more thoughts on Silent Night. But yes, glorious, and most certainly not by much because Monster's really close behind. But yes, this wins the official award for my best YA read of 2021. Congratulations, Silent Night. Yes, yes. I don't have a physical award. I wish I did. That would be a lot more fun than what I'm doing, but it is what it is. Whatevs. The next award will go to the book that was the most emotional read for me for 2021. Here are the nominees. Fat Camp by James Sabata. Autumncrow by Cameron Chaney. And Monster Street #2, The Halloweeners by J.H. Reynolds. The winner is dun 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 dun, The Halloweeners. So it was very close on this one too because Autumncrow had parts that made me tear up, and I really thought it could easily be most emotional, but at the same time, it had a lot of horror. It wasn't all sentimental. A lot of the stories were, but not every single one. Some of them had like a really hardcore punch to them where it was like gory, and I don't know, it was really awesome. It was a great read all around. So that one almost won, but because it had more of a mixture of things and it wasn't just emotional, that's why it didn't win the most emotional award. Also, Fat Camp, super close behind this one. It almost won for most emotional read, but it only didn't because there was a lot of, like, you know, humor that I didn't like that was, like, kind of sophomoric. Overall, I love the read. It's just that, like, I wasn't emotional to the very, very end, and it was a quick emotion, like, it was, like, a few pages, but it did pack a punch, like, the emotion that when it showed up, it was like, oh my god, yes. But this one, for some reason, I very distinctly remember this. I was on a plane reading this, and I was afraid people were gonna see, like, tears in my eyes and be like, what's wrong with her? I even was, like, wiping my eyes off, like, you know, kind of discreetly. I was like, I just have such a very strong memory of this. And so there's this part in the book where the main character's mom finds out something that basically she wasn't at fault for something she had been blaming herself for a very long time. And there's a scene where the son is he's like hiding, and he sees her finding out that she wasn't at fault, and just the relief that is described that she feels, and like I don't know, you could just tell she's relieved and she's crying, and it's so emotional. Like, that got me. I don't know. I mean, it got me for like 10 minutes. I was like, this is really making me emotional on a plane. Your snakes on a plane? No. Crying on a plane, apparently. Yeah. Halloweeners on a plane. I don't know if I would recommend it, because if you're as easily moved as me, you might make a fool of yourself in public. I don't know. But yeah. And with a mask on, that also was difficult because I was kind of like sniffly, and like I had the mask, and I was like, oh, this is not a good recipe, and not a good kind of combo type of thing. So this was just so good. And yes, it's a kid's book. That doesn't mean that it can't show emotion. It doesn't mean that it wasn't great. And I know reading kid books as an adult isn't for everyone, but I honestly love reading middle grade and kid books because I feel like you can connect back to that innocence and nostalgia from your own childhood. And so, I don't know, there's just something awesome about it, and that's why this one had to win. Awesome stuff. Congratulations, Halloweeners. Why am I bowing? I don't know. The next award I will present is for the bloodiest and goriest read of 2021. And this one does have a few nominees. So without further ado, the nominees are The Reckoning by Ruby Jean Jensen, The Nest by Gregory A. Douglas, Video Night by Adam Caesar, Walkers by Graham Masterton, and finally, Kill Hill Carnage by Tim Meyer. Without further ado, let's open up the envelope. The winner is Kill Hill Carnage by Tim Meyer. This book was bloody as hell. It was gory as hell. And as I described in my wrap-up for that month, this was the summer camp month of reading, it also described a lot of intense smells. Very, very in-depth, the descriptions of these smells. You're almost like, ew, I smell something in the room with me as you're reading. Like, that's how the descriptions were. And honestly, so something happens at the very beginning of this book that is just like, whoa, that is super gory and crazy, and very off-putting. And actually, I didn't think they could ever show something like that in a movie, but recently during Christmas, during December time, I watched a Christmas horror movie that showed a scene that was depicted in here. I don't even want to say what it has to do with, but I guess I will. I don't even know. It's something to do... No. I'm not even gonna go there. Just read it if you want to find out. I don't want to freak people out. It's, like, really gross. But something goes into a mouth, and it's, like, not supposed to go there. And it goes, like, really far back, and it's like... Anyway, it's bad. But this book was good, though. The scene was bad in terms of ew. But overall, yeah. Great, fun time. Lots of... I mean, not to use the word that's in the title, but it's named Carnage in the name for a reason. So yeah, there's tons of carnage in here. And it's not just about stuff taking place at summer camp. It kind of goes back and forth between summer camp, which was scenes that were taking place back in the day, and then present day, where these kids are coming to this abandoned summer camp, wondering what happened there many years before. And also, then they kind of go nearby to this facility on this hill and have to discover what's going on. So it's a lot of stuff develops. I'm really doing a terrible job at describing it, but just read it, because he does a great job of going back and forth between, like, the back in the day at the summer camp and then present day with these other kids that are going there to explore. And so he does a good job at going between. You don't get confused as the reader. So this had to be the bloodiest book. It really wasn't even close. Although I will say some of the nominees, just to put that graphic back up again, The Reckoning was marvelous. It had stuff about flipping skin. Like, at one point, like, I even said in my review, like, you think this lady's laying on a bed? No, it's just her skin, bitch. So, like, that's what I said in my review, and people were laughing about that. And The Nest, oh my god, you guys know how I feel about that. I have praised it so many times. Multiple dudes get their dicks chewed off. Yes, multiple, more than one guy. It's so insane. But other stuff happens with the roaches, like they burrow into people's brains, and oh my god, it's very brutal. In fact, there's some heart-wrenching deaths in there too, so it's not all just funny, haha. There's some, like, impactful things in there too. Video Night, it had stuff with somebody peeling things off, like, as in skin off of themselves, and that scene just made me cringe, so that's why it was a contender. Walkers, there's just all these descriptions of people being, like, pulled into cement and, like, their bones breaking and blood all over the place, so that's why it was a contender as well. So the contenders, they're pretty great too and gory. So if you like a gore a lot and you're a gore fiend, you might want to check out any of the nominees. But again, this one had the very most amount of blood. So if you're looking for buckets and buckets of blood, this might have you covered. The next award is for the Best Animal Attack Horror Book that I read in 2021. The nominees are Hellhound by Ken Greenhall, The Nest by Gregory A. Douglas, The Rue by Alan Baxter, and Rats by Paul Zindel. And the winner is dun, 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 Hellhound. Unfortunately, I do not have a physical copy of this book. I wish I did. Of course, I wish I had an old school copy, even though the cover's not that great. But I really should have a Valiant Court new edition, at least, and I don't. I checked it out from the library when I read it, and oh my god, it's such a great book. Cool, calculated Baxter, who is our main character that we're following. And yes, he's a flippin' dog. And not only any dog, he is a killer canine. He is murderous. He is menacing. And he is very plotting. And so, he's just so well written. I can't believe Ken Greenhall, he just had such an easy time kind of writing like a dog. And it's so, I don't think dogs really think like Baxter, because then we'd be all scared of our dogs, but it's just like I could believe that it was really Baxter's thoughts that I was reading. But it's not all from his perspective. We do get a perspective of a little boy who kind of is just as bad in terms of how terrible his thoughts are as Baxter. And so that's kind of where the story really takes a cool turn, and it was such a good book. You guys might have thought that The Nest was going to win because I've talked about The Nest so much throughout all of 2021 since I read it, all the way through the end of the year, and even into now, into 2022, I'm still talking about The Nest. And yes, I loved it, but what kept it from being like the #1 favorite pick for this category is that it had a little bit of scientific mumbo jumbo in parts of the book. Not just one part, it was like 2 different parts of the book where it was very, very drawn out scientific explanation about roaches and how they were able to evolve possibly to become this murderous and to kind of work as like a horde all together, as like a swarm. So yeah, that I think held it back for me, but just barely, because the imagery in The Nest is amazing. I don't want to discourage anyone from reading it, because literally all of those animal attack stories I really love. Now, I know my friend Juan from Plagued by Visions, he did not like the Rue. He told me he didn't really get the joke that Alan Baxter was trying to do. He didn't think it was well executed. I did kind of listen to his thoughts on it on one of his YouTube videos. I think he was going into detail about how, you know, Alan Baxter just, like, it wasn't fleshed out enough for him, and it could have been so much more. But yeah, I loved it. I just felt like it was silly fun. I could kind of let back and let loose and just, like, enjoy the ridiculous passages about a killer kangaroo. In case you were wondering, that is what it's about. And even Rats by Paul Zindel is supposed to be a middle grade book, but it is freaking brutal. It is the most brutal. Oh my god, I loved it. So yeah, all of the nominees were amazing, and I would suggest all 4 of them. But yeah, especially Hellhound, because I just think that the story, it's just not funny, haha. It's a really great story, and it's haunted me. Like, I remember the story very, very well, and it was one of the first flippin' reads that I read in 2021. So that just tells you that it was a great read, because it's really stuck with me all the way into 2022, now that we're in this new year. The next award is for my favorite slasher book that I read in 2021. Alright, and for this one, the nominees: Fat Camp by James Sabata, Under the Blade by Matt Serafini, and Kill Hill Carnage by Tim Meyer. And the winner is Under the Blade by Matt Serafini. Before I go into why I love this so much, I do want to shout out Fat Camp. Like I said, it was a great book. The only thing that kept it from winning was some of the humor. Like I said, I wasn't really into, like, the bathroom humor, but that is how boys at summer camp would probably talk. That wasn't so bad. It was more of, like, the self-deprecation, the self, like, oh, I suck, I'm the worst. Like, that kind of dragged me down after a while, like, reading that about the main character. He was constantly putting himself down, and so, but there was a reason for that, and his character goes through a huge kind of arc in the story, and he really develops and changes, and it was a great book. And like I said, it was emotional, as I mentioned, because it was a nominee for most emotional book, and which usually doesn't go with slashers, but for Fat Camp it did go with that. It was very emotional, so I highly recommend Fat Camp. And I also recommend, as I just talked about, Kill Hill Carnage. If you're looking for the buckets of blood, it has it, as I said before. But let's get into Under the Blade. I can't wait to read more by Matt Serafini, because I love this book. It wasn't your typical slash and bash, and that's all it is. There is more layers to this story. I really enjoyed the main character. I enjoyed the logic behind things in terms of, there's this main character who survives a attack at camp. Kind of think Friday the 13th. She'd be the lone survivor. So it's many years later, she's an adult, and she decides to go back, but she's got a great reason for going back, and I found it believable. It wasn't just somebody, I need to kind of come to grips with my past. It wasn't that. It was much more than that, and it just made more sense to me, the reason she did end up going back. And yeah, it's kind of got some supernatural stuff going on, but it's got more than that even. So there's so many things at play in this book, and it reminded me of a slasher movie, but like to the next level, in terms of there was more layers to it even than, like, you know, a slasher movie. And it was just so good, and like there was like twists and turns, and I don't know, I really loved it. There was one annoying character, and I remember her name was Trish. That didn't bug me too much. She's not like huge into the story, so she wouldn't really hinder people's enjoyment that much. But yeah, this was a full 5 stars for me. I totally recommend it if you like slashers that have a little something extra. If you're just looking for a bloody good time, I mean, yeah, Kill Hill Carnage is more your jam, but this, like, has more to it, and I don't know. But it still has blood and gore and carnage too. But yeah, it just had everything. I loved this book. I can't even tell you how much I loved this book. It was so good. The next award is for my favorite horror fiction subgenre. Alright, and so let's talk about the nominees. The nominees are slashers, summer horror, animal attack horror, and holiday horror. So which was my favorite subgenre in 2021 to read? Alright, my favorite, dun 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 dun, you may have guessed, Animal Attack books. Because, yes, I read the 4 that I told you guys, which were nominated for Best Animal Attack, but I also read Jaws 2. So, technically, I read 5 Animal Attack books, and it really should have been many more Animal Attack books, because it seems to be a subgenre of horror that I freaking love. Now, the other nominees I love too, that's why they were nominated. Like summer horror, I found out in the summertime, obviously, that's when I read all of those, that I loved it. And winter horror, I actually like even better than summer horror. There's something about like cold and snow that really is a great setting for horror. It just makes you feel like alone and scared, and I don't know. Feeling cold is not fun, so that's kind of what it reminds me of, and I think that's why it's a great setting for horror. It's just like you're miserable in the cold sometimes, especially like if you're trapped in the snow or if you're somewhere isolated away from everybody and you can't get away. So in summer, it's not that hard to get away in certain times. Like summer's just more of a background setting for a lot of horror stories that take place in summer. Whereas winter sometimes is an active part of a winter horror story in terms of like the snow might play a factor and things, and etc, etc. And then slashers, of course. I just love slasher books in general, and I read quite a few slashers as part of my summer camp themed readathon type of thing. So yeah, I like slashers too, but Animal Attack books I think are my main jam, and I'm really hoping to read more of them this year in 2022, but we'll see if I have the time. Next award is for the Zaniest book that I read in 2021. So I will say that this award will be the last award that will have any kind of honorable mention. There will be no more nominees going forward after this award, and so this one doesn't even have nominees. Like I said, it just has an honorable mention, so no more nominees after this. The Zaniest adult book, I've also got a kids category for this same award, but the adult Zaniest book that I read was Toy Cemetery by William W. Johnstone. Oh my god, as I teased, it was batshit crazy, aka zany. And as you can see, I marked so many things in the book that were either just absurd or like, what the hell. I'm hoping to still do a video series called Kelsi Quotes. And I'm hoping to read, like, some things I've marked in old school horror books. But I might just do one that's, like, Kelsi Quotes Toy Cemetery and, like, you know, read some of these. And they're not really spoilers, and some of them, like, one of them might be, but most of them are not. I don't even know, like, I'm trying to find a good one to read to you guys. Oh, yes. In this one page, I mean, they say their names, like, when they're speaking to each other, the two characters, they say each other's names like 40 times, and I'm like, what the hell? Why are they saying it so many times? Just a feeling, Jay? Yes. You're a rich man now, Jay. Are you aware of that? And just like later on down the page, very odd things have been occurring in this town for years, Jay. The town has a secret, Jay. Like, I'm literally just reading down the page. There's so many Jays on this page. Like, the character is named Jay. And then, like, then the other character gets, like, named a lot. It was just so zany. That's not the only thing, but like, freaking Jay was said like 5 times on that page alone. But yes, this was so zany, I can't even tell you. Go check out my vlog I teased if you guys want to see more of my thoughts on this book, because it's all there. Alright, and now for the zaniest kids book that I read in 2021, and that award goes to... dun, 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 a Goosebumps book, The Horror at Camp Jelly Jam. And yeah, this one was weird, but in the best way. I'm never gonna forget the end of this book. It was so out there, and I was not expecting it, and I was like, what the hell? What is this creature thing? And why? And how did R.L. Stine come up with it? That's what I was basically thinking, like, how the hell did he come up with this? Anyway, that's why it's the zaniest kids book that I read of all of 2021. It was so much fun. I totally recommend it for sure. Alright, and the last honorable mention for a while that I'm going to talk about, this book almost won for Zaniest Adult Read. This is The Drive-In by Joe R. Lansdale, and this is actually the complete Drive-In, which is all 3 Drive-In books. I have only read the first of this whole collection, and I did adjust my page count numbers on Goodreads to reflect that I only read 1 story out of the whole book. So, my page count is accurate. When I told you guys I read 19,010 pages, I actually had to subtract pages because Goodreads thought I had read this whole book, but no, I only read the first book in this collection. So, the first Drive-In book is insane. It is very weird, but in a great way. It's totally got some dark humor. Man, Lansdale is a master writer. I mean, this was so... I mean, zany. I mean, that's why it was nominated, or not nominated because it was an official nominee, but that's why it's the honorable mention, because it was just strange, but in the best way. And I would say it kind of leans more into sci-fi. I wouldn't call it like 100% horror, but there is some weird stuff and some scary stuff and some unsettling stuff. So yeah, I guess it kind of fits horror sci-fi in a way. I don't know. Just strange fiction really more than sci-fi. I think strange fiction is the better description and category for this book, but yeah, it was weird too. So if you're thinking about checking this out, definitely dive in, because I enjoyed the drive-in, at least the first one. I can't wait to get to the other two that are in this complete collection of all the drive-in stories. So the next award is for the book with the best atmosphere that I read in 2021. And the reason that these next few awards don't have nominees is because that there was just one book that outshined any other possibility. So there really wasn't a runner-up. There was one book that was just so far out that really shined in the category, and there was really no other considerations. So this book that wins for the best atmosphere, it was the best. There was no other one that came close, and that would be Autumncrow by Cameron Chaney. I love the atmosphere in this book. All the short stories, but the very last one takes place in a town called Autumncrow, where it's essentially Halloween every day. And like I said, because I nominated this for most emotional, there's a lot of like morose, heart-wrenching stuff, and there's just a lot of sadness in the stories, but there's also some brutality too, and some definite horror. So it just had such a great vibe, and it was literally the perfect read for Halloween time and fall time. I read this starting on the first day of fall, as I teased. That was part of my first day of fall vlog, and it couldn't have been more perfect to read at that time. And so because of that, like, I remember reading this so vividly. I remember being in Boston and going to pick pumpkins and then coming back and reading this, because I had traveled to Boston while I was in the middle of reading this. So I just have the best memories, and it reminds me of Halloween because that's when I read it and because that's when it's set, and just the atmosphere is top notch. You literally cannot beat it. Cameron does such an incredible job at making you feel like you're in this town, but he also does a good job at like really setting the stage for the stories. And honestly, this anthology, I don't have a category for best anthology, but if I did, this would hands down be the winner out of the 7 anthologies I read and the story collections I read. This one was like so far away the best. And honestly, it kind of ruined me for other anthologies, because after this, in December, I read Ronald Kelly's Seasons Creepings, and I liked it, but it was just not as good as this. So I was like, I like it, but like I couldn't get into it. Like I just kept remembering the feeling of Autumncrow. I loved how the stories were connected together. I love how they were all set in the same place. It just didn't feel random to me, this collection. And so I just think this is like such a standout collection. I will give a disclaimer that Cameron, I consider him a friend. He's one of my favorite people. I'm so glad we connected in 2021, and he will also be named as one of my favorite booktube channels that I found in 2021. But none of that is relevant to how I feel about the book, because I would have felt this way had I not even known Cameron's YouTube existed, had I not befriended Cameron. It is a perfect Halloween read, and I will stake my reputation on that. I am okay with saying, yes, I'm 100% sure it's a perfectly appropriate, wonderful, great Halloween read, or fall read, because it would work either way. I mean, you could read it any time of the year you'd want, and it would be fun, but I just think it's extra great for that time because of the atmosphere, and that is why this is the winner for Best Atmosphere. And also, I'm just going to make the category Best Anthology / Story Collection. The next award is for the book with the best setting that I read in 2021. And you might be saying, well, setting and atmosphere, aren't they the same thing? No. Setting is like a physical place. Autumncrow is more about the feel of the stories and the tone of the entire book, combined with the setting. That was just created a whole atmosphere. Best setting, this award, I'm kind of trying to indicate like where the book takes place. A unique setting, my favorite setting of any book that I read of 2021. So the book with the best setting that I read in 2021 goes to The Elementals by Michael McDowell. And unfortunately, I don't have a physical copy of this either. I checked it out from the library. I wish I did have a new Valancourt print of the book, because I have a lot of other Valancourt books of Michael McDowell's, and I have yet to kind of purchase, even though I read it, the elementals, so I gotta rectify that and buy it. I thought the setting was phenomenal. It was set in summertime in sweltering heat in Alabama, and you're at these 3 beach houses, and I just could feel like I was there when I was reading. So the way McDowell described the setting was really, really effective in my opinion. I know some people were kind of bored by the book and just thought it was okay. I really loved it, but I think the best part of the book, honestly, is the setting. I think that's maybe why I loved it so much, is because I live in the South, so when he would describe the sweltering heat, I felt it. I was like, oh my god, yes, this is what it's like to be stuck in the freaking heat. And also, like, the spooky things that were happening, sand was playing a part in some of it. And there's this one scene where something happens with a person in sand, where somebody's looking through a window, and it just floored me. I was like, oh my god, I got goosebumps. I mean, it didn't, like, scare me, but it, like, creeped me out a little bit, and it was effective in that moment as I was reading. I was like, whoa! So, to me, it was a wonderful book, but the setting is what shined, and that's why it deserves the award for best setting. Next award is for the most eloquently written book that I read in 2021. And this one, there was really no book that came close, except maybe another book by the very same author. And so the winner is Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury. And yes, I also read The Halloween Tree, which is also by Ray Bradbury. And that one also is very eloquently written. However, I think this one is just chef's kiss. I mean, it's almost too well written in terms of, it's kind of hard to understand at times because the language is so flowery and the language is so dense, but you can appreciate it once you take your time with it. And luckily I half read this and also half listened to it on audiobook, and that I think really helps really get into it and get absorbed. And so because of that, I just have such fond memories of reading / listening to this. It was a joy. I could have marked something on almost every page, just the way he describes things, like mundane things, boys running around in fall time. This is also similar to Autumncrow. This is a perfect read for autumn time or Halloween time. It would be perfectly thematic. I would recommend it for that time of year. You could read it anytime, but it would perfectly fit for fall. And that's when I read it in late September, and it was so perfect and appropriate. So yeah, that is why it wins for most eloquently written book, because it just blew me away with the language. I mean, other eloquent books, I mean, even The Nest, which is ironic because it's about roaches. You would think that doesn't go together, eloquent and roaches, but yeah. Gregory A. Douglas really wrote very beautiful prose in The Nest, funnily enough, and I don't know if you guys believe me, but trust me, it's true. It's gory, beautiful prose, but still, it's beautiful the way he worded things. And it's eloquent in its own way. But this is just another level, honestly. And The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury also comes close, but no, this one still kind of knocks it out of the park, and it's much longer too, so you have more of the beautiful language than you do have in The Halloween Tree. So congratulations, Something Wicked This Way Comes. By the way, the movie adaptation is badass. I almost like it better than the book. It's just one of the best adaptations of all time, I think, in my opinion, and of the ones I've seen. But oh my god, it's so good. It's so good. Anyway, I recommend it. The next award is for the most thrilling or suspenseful book that I read in 2021. And the award goes to Endless Night by Richard Lehman, who I'm super into right now. I don't know why I'm dancing, but oh my god, Richard Lehman. A different kind of cozy, as my friend Juan says. I'm stealing his quote, but I'm paying tribute to the fact that it's his quote. Oh my god, Richard Lehman. He's not for everyone. Don't just go and pick up a Lehman and think, hey, Kelsi said yeah. No, I did not say yeah for everybody. Yeah for most people. No, not even most people. Yeah, for some people, but maybe not for some other people, because, yeah. Strange sexual overtones, characters that are over-sexualized, writing that is not the best. This would not be the most eloquently written book at all. It wouldn't even be close. But it is the most suspenseful and thrilling book because from page frickin' 1, maybe even 2, it might have been page 2 that it started the action, but very early on, definitely within the first 5 pages, definitely, it picks up fast. It starts off with a frickin' bang and is so unsettling. And nerve-wracking. And the whole time you're like, oh my god, oh my god. We follow the main character, Jody, as she tries to escape from these freaking maniacs who are essentially crashing this sleepover party at her friend's house. These freaking guys come in, kill people. Who will survive, who will not? You know that Jody is basically the main focus of the story, so it's about her trying to get away from these madmen. And it is tense, I gotta tell you. I was on the edge of my seat, and I only took 2 sittings. I can't even speak, I'm so excited about it. It only took me 2 sittings to read this massive book. And look how big this book is, okay? It's huge. I am a slow reader. I say that, but I've read a lot already in the first week of January in 2022, so I don't know, am I getting to be a medium-paced reader? Maybe, perhaps, which would be great. But all I know is that I just felt like time was flying by when I was reading this, and I couldn't wait. When I had to stop, I was like, I cannot wait for the next day to pick it back up. It was one of those reads. Now, I know a lot of people have said they want to read The Cellar by him. I've heard people say, like, I'm going to start with The Cellar. I have heard what The Cellar is about. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend starting there. I would maybe start with this. I think The Cellar is his most controversial book. I would, like, maybe save that and, like, make sure you even like Layman at all first. I feel like this would be a good test. I mean, I don't know other books by him in terms of I haven't read them. I mean, I know the titles, but I have not read other books by him. I'm about to read Funland in February, and I cannot freaking wait. I'm, like, so pumped about Funland, I can't even tell you. So, if it's anything like this, I'm gonna have a ball. But I just want to tell you guys, like, I would maybe pick this up if you're wanting to check out Layman, because I can give my stamp of approval on this. And yeah, there's, like, that weird sexual stuff that I mentioned, because I think that's in all of his books, but the tension is what you want to read this for, and, like, rooting for the main character is what you want to read this for. My friend Katie, she's on Instagram, I will link her channel down below. She read this and gave it a 5 stars. I rated this a 4.5 on Goodreads, and I rounded it up to 5. However, I really feel like I'm going to change that. I feel like, I don't know why I was hesitant to give it a 5. I felt like, oh, weird about giving a Layman book a 5 star. But, like, the more I think about it, this was one of the best books I read in terms of enjoyment. So I'm going to give it a full 5. I'm going to go back and edit my star rating because, yeah, this was marvelous. I agree with Katie. I'm going to make it a full 5 stars, full-blown 5 stars. It was just such a crazy time. I've already told this story in my wrap-up from November, but I yelped at the end of the story of the book, and my boyfriend came running thinking something was wrong. He literally came running. I'm not making this story up or exaggerating. And he was kind of mad at me because he's like, I thought you were hurt. And I was like, no, bitch, I'm reading the story. Like, you saw me reading and you knew I was really, like, into it. And I was, like, making noises before he left the room, so I don't know why he thought I got hurt, but anyway. I don't call him bitch. Like, well, sometimes we joke around and like, yeah, bitch. But anyway, I was just like, no, I'm not hurt. I'm just, like, feeling things. So anyway, yes, definitely deserves winning the most thrilling and suspenseful book award. Congratulations. Endless Night. I still don't know why I'm bowing. I can't stop. The next award is for the book that was the most shocking to me. That award goes to dun 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 dun, Such Nice People by Sandra Scopatone. I don't even know if that's right. I'm pretty sure it's not. I know I've already made people want to read this. Marcy, I'm referencing her again. She was like, I want to read it after Kelsi talked about it. I was like, oh my god, I feel bad because it's hard to find this book, like really hard to find. I'm going to be on the hunt for an old school copy because it'd be great if she could read it too. This definitely had a shocking scene in it. Not only one shocking scenes, but if you count, like, the end too, like, lots of shocking things in this book, but I will admit, and I will kind of warn that it is a slow burn. There's a lot of character development, and that is the majority of the book until you get to, like, the 70% mark. And my friend Kelly almost DNF'd it. Check her out on Instagram. She's at Kelly Hooked on Books, and she's got a book club where she reads vintage horror and stuff. So she read this one the same month I read it. She almost stopped, and she was like, I don't know if I can go on. Like, should I keep going? And I was like, I don't know if it'd be worth it to her. But she ended up giving it a 4 stars. And I'd say when she was about to DNF and then ends up giving it a 4 stars, I'd say that's a pretty good turnaround. So to me, I do think it's a great book. and I do think the shocking elements are worth the wait, so it's worth the slow burn. There are other books, like I just did a whole video about my most disappointing reads. My honorable mention was this book here, Halo, which is right behind me. It's kind of glary, sorry about that. But I said that, like, it was a slow burn, but I didn't feel like it packed enough of a punch to be flippin' worth it, like, worth the amount of time it took to get to the horror. So, that was on that end of the spectrum. On this end of the spectrum, it's most definitely worth it, especially the shocking part, the shed. The f***ing shed. I didn't mean to. I usually try to avoid cursing on my channel, I don't know why, just in case, but I like to be, like, you know, friendly and accommodating to everyone in case someone doesn't like to hear things like that. But I gotta say, yeah, that scene, it's wild. And everyone talks about it, so just, I hope you guys can find a copy if you're interested, because, yeah, I thought it was shocking. But again, the slowness in the beginning and the middle might not be for everybody. I liked the character development. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it, so to me, it was worth the wait, and I enjoyed, like, the journey. So, I don't know, I liked it, and this definitely deserves the award for that scene alone for most shocking read of 2021. Next award is for the book with the craziest twist that I read in 2021. And that award goes to Fallen Angel. And Fallen Angel, I don't have a physical copy of. I checked it out from the library. It is a paperback from hell type of read. Will Erickson's a big fan of the book. It is set in old school New York, following this detective trying to solve this mystery. And there's occult stuff in it, and really crazy things end up happening. And there's like a crazy thing that develops at the end, hence why this book wins for craziest twist. It could have been a contender for best setting, to be honest, because the descriptions of old school New York really make you feel like you're in the city back in the day, following this detective as he's pounding the pavement trying to find clues and stuff. By the way, this is pounding the pavement. I don't think it's more like a Vince McMahon walk. I don't know what I'm doing here. Anyway, ignore the walk and the stomping, but yes, I do believe that the book with the best twist, or the craziest twist, was Fallen Angel. It was wild. Definitely check out the book if you're interested. You could find it pretty easily, even though it is an old school book. And yeah, if you don't like the detective stories, you might not like it so much, but it does have, like, stuff that has, like, an occult flair. It does have some brutal murders described in terms of finding the bodies and the body being all crazy and messed up. And then there's this crazy scene near the end, like, ugh, that part's weird. Anyway, just check it out if you're intrigued. I'm not really going through the synopses of these books with you guys, just because, like, a lot of these I've covered in monthly wrap-ups, and books that I have not covered in monthly wrap-ups I might have talked about in a haul, per se, or maybe I just talked about it at some point, and it would take forever, and this video's already flipping long, and it would take even longer if I read the descriptions. I kind of want to just tell you why I gave awards to certain books, and then if you guys are intrigued, I would think that you would look it up or add it to your Goodreads and then see the synopsis or see the description and then decide for yourself if you're really gonna read it or not. I could love something, by the way, guys, and you guys could dislike it. That very well could happen. Reading is subjective, as I said in my kind of negative video where I talked about my least favorite reads of the year. I think it's perfectly okay if we agree to disagree, as long as we are respectful of each other. And so I'm always perfectly okay with that. If you guys have read any of these and hated these books, or if you're going to read them and end up hating them, I'm sorry. But also, it is what it is. We have different opinions, and I think that's cool. And I'd love to hear why your opinion's different than mine. And again, if you've read any of these, period, if you liked it or disliked it, I'd love to hear about it down in the comments below. But just no spoilers, please. If you want to talk about plot points, you might want to message me or email me at slimeandslashers@gmail.com. Please don't leave spoilers in the comments. I don't want to ruin books for people who haven't read them. Book that made me the angriest. This is a weird award. It's a negative award. But this one, there is a clear-cut winner, for sure, and that would be Let's Go Play at the Adamses. This book made me so freaking mad, hence why it wins the award. Oh my god, the kids in the book take their babysitter, tie her up, and freaking torture her, and at some points it becomes, there's sexual abuse, but also just much more. And you're in the main character's thoughts, and it's just excruciating, but, like, the frustrating part is you don't understand why these kids do what they do. You can't even believe their freaking reasonings behind it. Anyway, I have mixed feelings about the book. I actually gave it like a 3-star, but I still remember it very vividly in terms of how it made me feel. And to me, that's effective horror. It still is making me angry, like, over a year later. I think it was one of my first reads of the year. Maybe it's, like, a little less than a year later, but still, a long time later, I'm still remembering how I felt while reading it, how I felt after reading it, how freaking powerful my reaction was to what I had read, and, oh god, it just affected me in many ways. And so I would advise, you know, looking up, if you're worried, look up trigger warnings, because there's lots of triggers in the book, for sure. I mentioned one with the abuse and stuff, but oh my god, it was a hard read, and it definitely made me angry, and I have a blog post about it, and I also have a whole video review about it, and so I think my blog post is a little more well thought out, whereas, like, my video review is like, blah, 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 I don't know how to feel, but I do describe why I feel the way I do in the video review. I would recommend, you know, whichever one you prefer, but I'll link the review down below, because it was a long review, but it tells you all my feelings on the book. Next up is the award for the book with the best characterization that I read in 2021. And that award goes to Stephen King's The Stand. Now, this book, I'm torn on because I didn't like the end too much, but I loved the journey. I loved the journey because I really had a good time getting to know all the characters. And I never thought I'd be someone who could get into a book with so many characters, because this follows a lot of people. But I, throughout my reading journey, came to love a lot of the characters in this book. And I just couldn't believe how many different people in the book that I connected with. And to me, that's a testament to good writing. However, I feel like the ending lacked big time. But, having said that, the characters made it worth it. The characters made it a favorite read of the year for me. The characters are what you want to read this for. And it was just wonderful. There were some things that happened that were cool that you're like, whoa, whoa. It's just that I wish the ending could have been wrapped up in a different way, and it wasn't satisfying the way things played out. However, like, if you want to hear more of my thoughts on this, please go and check out my Stand review, where I compare the book with the 2 TV adaptations, and I also talk about, like, the book in general. It's very thorough, so if you want to see what I have to say about that, or I guess technically hear what I have to say about that, then you can check out that video. I'll link it down below. The next award is for the most unique and most obscure read of the year for me from 2021. And that award goes to The Sandman by Miles Gibson. This book was recommended to me by somebody in my YouTube comments. Now, I cannot find the comment. I even searched my comments for Sandman, and I could not find it. I was like, where's the comment where the person recommended it to me? I am so glad they did, because I've heard nobody ever talk about this book. Now, this book isn't for everyone, because there is some slow parts. We're learning a lot about the main character, who is very, very weird and strange, and he thinks of himself as the Sandman, but he also is called Mackerel. Like, that's his nickname, is Mackerel. And he's just very, very odd, but he's a killer. And he describes, like, his need for killing, and for me, he kind of almost feels like an unreliable narrator. At times I'm like, did all of this really happen that takes place in the book? Or is it, like, his, like, you know, imagination, or is it his storytelling? But anyway, it's kind of like what I would imagine the book American Psycho is like, but less extreme. You're following the killer, you're in his mind, you're really, like, you know, learning about why he's doing what he's doing, but it's also tame at the same time. So to me, that's why I say it's not for everybody, but, like, it was a fascinating read, it was a fun read, it had a lot of dark and strange humor to it, too. Like, there was parts that you were just like, this is odd, and you laugh, and you're like, haha, I don't know. It just made me feel a lot of things, and it was definitely unique. That is the perfect word to describe this, and that's why this wins for the most unique read of 2021 for me, because I would have never picked this up ever, because I wouldn't have heard of it had it not been for that comment. But when somebody was telling me, oh, if you're looking for a slasher, check out The Sandman, that intrigued me, and I found a really cheap copy. I think I found this on World of Books or something, and it's actually in decent condition. It's a hardcover. And just, like, look at the guy on the cover. I mean, he's so weird. He's got, like, these gloves on, he's got, like, these weird glasses, he's got, like, this hair, and he actually sprays white in his hair right in parts of the book. So, I don't know. I enjoyed it very much, and I would definitely also, like I said, it was a joint award for most unique read, but also the most obscure read, because I haven't heard anyone talk about this Again, I don't know if it would be for every single one of you watching out there, especially people who like fast-paced things, but it's interesting and definitely warrants winning the most unique award. So congratulations, Sandman! The next award is for the best kids book that I read in 2021. And that award, I mean, this one was a tough category. I should have really made a list of nominees for this because there could have been a long list of nominees. However, the book that wins is The Grin in the Dark by J.A. Dark. And this is part of the Spine Shivers series, and just look at this freaking cover. Incredible. Amazing. And I just think that for a middle grade book, this was super creepy. And if you're creeped out by clowns, this will freak you out. This will be like, ugh! And yeah, there were just parts in the book where I was like, oh my god. Just the idea and the description of clown stuff, it was kind of creepy. And it did give me a chill at one point. Like a slight chill, you know. Not like, oh my god, I'm so scared, I'm shaking in my boots or anything like that. But, shaking in my boots. You know what I'm saying. Also, Jackson is snoring and dreaming over there, so if you hear weird noises, it is Jackson dreaming and making crazy, like, dream noises and huffs and puffs. So, yes, this was spooky, this was quick, this was easy. All middle grade horror books, or books in general, they're just always so easy to read, and that's why I love reading them in between longer adult books, because they just break things up. But this one was a good one. This one was really enjoyable, and I do recommend it if you're into reading middle grade books. And this gave me goosebump vibes, but it's a more recent book. So yeah, and come on, the cover is worth owning the book alone. So even if you buy it and don't like it, wouldn't you just like to have this cover? And I wish the glare wasn't so bad. There we go. The cover. Glorious and just scary. And speaking of Goosebumps, this next award is for my best Goosebumps read of the year. And that award goes to... Dun, 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 Welcome to Camp Nightmare. And this one will stay with me forever because I did not see where it was going. It got me. It got me at the end. I was like, whoa. Now, I just mentioned for the Zaniest Kids Book Award, I gave it to the other Goosebumps book, The Horror at Camp Jelly Jam. And that one was wonderful. I will also never forget the ending. However, this was different. It was more like a surprise type of thing. I really liked it, and the summer camp setting was fun, and it was like all these things were going on, and I could not figure it out, and I don't know. It was just, the mystery was really good throughout the whole book, and so I was like on the edge of my seat in a way because I wanted to find out what was going to happen, what was going on. I don't know, I liked this one a lot, and I've read, like I said, 6 Goosebump books this year. They were all enjoyable. It was really hard to pick a favorite, because I really liked them all. I could easily pick a least favorite. Psst, Night of the Living Dummy. I didn't like that one as much as I thought I would. It was still decent. They're all good. And, like, they're all fun, as I said, and they're all enjoyable. However, this one just kind of stood out to me because of the end, and because I would have never imagined where it went. So, yeah, wonderful time. Definitely recommend. Alright, and the next award is for the book that had the biggest impact on my life. So I don't know what you want to call this award, the Impact Award. So that award goes to Paperbacks from Hell, because it literally changed my life. It literally turned me into a horror book collector. It literally introduced me to very, very kind of obscure old school horror writers. It opened up my horizons to where I was aware of more than just King, more than just Kuntz, more than just your standard, typical, mainstream horror authors that we all know, like Anne Rice, R.I.P. I do want to read Anne Rice, and I love King, and I've kind of enjoyed, but not really, my one read from Kuntz. However, I have read some kids' books by Kuntz that I loved. So I'm looking forward to discovering more Kuntz that I like a lot more than the one I read in 2021. However, I love all those mainstream authors, but it was so special to discover other authors that I didn't have any idea existed. You know, people like William W. Johnstone, who's batshit crazy apparently and writes wild things. And people like Graham Masterton, who I just love discovering and I can't wait to read more by him. Authors like Richard Lehman. I would have never known about these people. I mean, I might have. I'm saying never known. The more and more horror I read and the more research I would have done on horror. I'm sure I would have discovered these authors on my own. However, it's all nicely packaged here in this wonderful, beautiful book. And beautiful, it sounds strange to describe a horror book that way, but just all the covers within this book. I wanted to count all the books that I was able to buy that are pictured in this book. However, that's really difficult to do. I think I've gotten, at this point, I know overall, even not pictured in this book, I've gotten over 300 paperbacks from hell that I've bought in 2021, because that's when I started collecting, and I have already amassed a giant collection in a short amount of time. However, how many of those are actually pictured in the book, I don't particularly know. I know it has to be at least 30 or 40, I bet, because at this point, my collection is fairly large. But yeah, this has just opened up my world in terms of reading. My reading life has completely changed since reading this, and so that's why it wins the award for like the biggest impact on my life. And I'm so glad I read this, because I hadn't read a nonfiction book in a long time, and I was like, am I gonna like this? Like, I love Grady Hendrix's fiction, but will I like this nonfiction book that's so random? But thank God I opened it up, because I just had such a ball learning about all of these vintage old school books, and it's just a feast for your eyes, because when you flip through and look at all the covers, it makes you want to go out and buy these books. And so that's what it did to me. It literally created a monster. I already am a collector. I already kind of have a problem like buying things and like getting into collecting, because things that you don't know that I collect Legos, I collect flippin' Pops, which I've kind of cut down on. I collect socks even. Yes, socks. Especially like, you know, thematic horror socks and pop culture socks. As I said, posters, tons of stuff. But like this just brought it to another level. Reading this, I was like, I must collect vintage horror paperbacks. And then it just opened up a world to booktubers that I never would have discovered. Really, after this book is how I discovered BookTube, and I reviewed this book, and then I started looking for other people talking about this book and other old school horror books. So literally in so many ways, not just in the way of like making me want to buy books, but in like, you know, introducing me to new people and allowing me to make new friends that have really just changed my life. So this book, I can't even say enough how grateful I am to have read it. So yes, thank you, Grady Hendrix and Will Erickson, because this was such a joy, and it's just transformed who I am as a person and a reader. To just put it in perspective for you guys, as I said, I have not been reading very long. I started late 2019 to really get into reading. Before that, I had no idea I liked to read, and so that is why, you know, I wasn't very familiar with random authors. I barely even knew what I liked when I started to read. I just was like, oh, I like this. Let me try some of this. Let me try some of that. So I'm evolving little by little as a reader, and it's been such a really interesting journey so far, and I can't wait to see what the future holds. So thanks for being on this journey with me too, by the way, guys, because you guys are an active part of it now, because you comment things, because now I'm doing a channel book club, etc., etc. So I appreciate you guys so very much. I really do. All right, we're at the last award, and this is a negative award. I hate to end things on a negative note, but this is the award for the biggest disappointment of 2021 in terms of, you know, most disappointing read. So I just released that video of my bottom 5 most disappointing reads of 2021, and the book I'm going to shout out right now is a part of that list, but that list was not ranked or numbered, so that's why this award will still be a surprise. So, the very most disappointing book I read in 2021 was The 13th by John Everson. I already described why I didn't like it in that video I referenced, so I won't say much here. I just thought this was going to be fun, and it was a dud. So that's all there really is to say. And this is my last honorable mention. And the honorable mention for most disappointing was A Deadly Education, because I had high hopes because of the Harry Potter comparison. People were saying it was dark Harry Potter. I get into it, and I was like, this is nothing like Harry Potter in terms of its easiness to read. It was not very easy to get into. So that was another disappointing one, but this is just my honorable mention. My true major disappointment, the actual award goes to this book. I don't know if you want to call it, like, I don't know what's a negative award, what you would call it. Alright guys, I know it's been long, but heck yeah, I am so happy with the first annual Kelsi's Book Awards. I will next year rebrand it, as I said, as Kelsi's Choice Awards. So next year it will be the second annual Kelsi's Choice Awards, even though it was called something different the first year. We're gonna roll with it. We're gonna roll with the punches, and it is what it is. Once again, guys, thank you so very much for watching this very long, ridiculously, absurdly lengthy video. I super, super appreciate it. As I always say, you guys taking the time to watch the videos means so much to me. I really, really am very grateful. And I can't wait to make more videos in 2022 as the year goes on. Stay tuned because I will be making more videos that look back on 2021 as I teased. A lot of the books I talked about here may or may not make it on my top 10 favorites list. Stay tuned to see that ranked list coming very, very soon. As I said, also coming soon, those vintage horror books. I'm going to talk about my favorite covers that I hauled in 2021. That's something else to look forward to as well. But for this time, that's all I have for you guys. Till next time, you know what you can do. Keep on killing it. Bye, guys. Thank you. I should have had champagne. It's an award ceremony. Oh well. See ya.